Welcome, Rawheads. This is Jesse with another episode of Raw and Roasted. I am here today with a very special guest. Me and him go a little way back, back to car sales a few years ago, where me and him met at a McGuire dealership here in Syracuse, New York. And he was there for a little bit, was a shining star, and then retired and made his way over to Florida, where now he's sitting comfortably with his nice Maserati, his nice wife, and his nice home. So, with further ado, welcome Bruno Schirripa.
What's happening, Jesse? Good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too. Good to see you
Nice hat.
too.
Did you get that at like Walmart?
No, so this is an AMD official hat that I got. So actually, I got this for being number one in the country in AMD products for HP. Yep.
Oh,
I won the year-long contest, and they rewarded me with an all-expense paid vacation to Puerto Rico with, and I brought my mom as a kind of reward for her for all the years that I've put her through hell and stuff. So,
yeah. We do that, don't we?
yep, just a little bit. But yeah. So Bruno,
Yeah.
what's been going on?
Well, I say to my friends, all my friends that I talk to, they say, what's it like being retired? It's worth every bit of time it spends to get there. All the blood, sweat, and tears, it's worth it. Being retired is such an amazing reward. It's every day is a vacation. To be very honest with you, my wife and I wake up every day. The first thing I do is I look out the window at the water right outside our window and the sun shining and palm trees, and I go, I live here. This is awesome. I got here. I can't. I'm still shocked that I got here.
I mean that was my grandparents' goal, and then once they did that, they didn't end up officially staying there like all the way through. They went just during the winters and stuff like that, just so then they didn't have to deal with the cold with their bones. But that's where I plan. Me and my wife plan to retire is Florida. That or like Colorado, Oregon, somewhere around there.
It's cold there, dude.
Yes, but we know she has a good amount of family up there and stuff like that, and it's closer to there because she's more towards the mid range of the United States, and I'm all East Coast basically.
Remember when we left Syracuse? I said to my wife, I came in one day and I said, honey, it's not that I can't snowblow anymore. I just don't want to.
Right.
Yeah, it's not that
Is
I
it
can't mow the lawn anymore. I just don't want to. We're out.
right?
We packed it up, like Beverly Hillbillies, rocking chair on top, and here we are. We drove all the way. It was quite a trip. Quite a trip.
And how long did it take you guys to get there?
It's about 23 hours from Syracuse straight through. So we drove straight through because at the time we had two cats and we had the cats in the car with us. So the
Okay.
plan was that the person driving would drive, the other person would crash out so they would be fresh when it was their turn to drive. And we would planning to switch off every 2 hours with drivers. So we would stop for fuel, get a little more coffee, make sure the cats didn't get out of the car. Well, the cats weren't cooperating. And the person that wasn't driving had to control the cats from getting down in the footwells and climbing on the driver. Yeah, so we were both wide awake for all 23 hours of the trip. We finally stopped for like 45 minutes at a truck stop near Savannah, Georgia. We went, oh my God, we just can't go another minute. It's like 6 a.m. So we pulled over for a minute. We said, okay, let's crash out for a little bit. We crashed out for about 45 minutes. And then Savannah's not far from the Florida border. So we cross
Right.
into Florida. We'll go, woo, Florida. Yeah, it was another 6 hours before we got home. So we
Jesus.
go, woo, for 6 more hours. We go, I can't breathe. I can't see. Oh my God. We were like zombies when we got out of the car when we got here. My wife says to me, we will never do that again. We will sell everything,
I
including the car. We'll fly home. We'll buy new stuff. That's it.
I'm right there with her. Yeah, the
Yeah.
driving long. I mean,
Yeah.
I drive on a consistent basis, pretty far distances and stuff, and eventually I'm not gonna want to do that. That's why I'm working towards a position where I can be more at home and stuff like that. Because driving, especially in the winter, going up to Watertown and down to Binghamton, it's a pain in the ass. Especially with construction, in New York, it's just terrible. But so now, to tell the people at home a little bit about Bruno, he has been in the comedy game for a very long time. He started in 1979, correct?
1979. We opened my first club in Pittsburgh, my hometown. Pittsburgh. This is what people in Syracuse don't realize. I'm so blessed and so grateful that when I came to Syracuse, everyone in Syracuse thought I was from Syracuse, but I didn't dispute it if they didn't ask. I just, hey man, hometown boy is what it felt like to them, and to me as well. I felt like Syracuse was home. I was so embraced when I opened my club there by some of the greats in the business. Actually, that came from Syracuse. You had Tom Kenny, Paul Kozlowski, Jeff. See, I'm old. I can't remember names. So it was so incredible. Bob Goldthwait was a good friend of me in the club. It was amazing being embraced by not only that sect of people but also the media. I remember going out places and the mayor would wave to me, "Hey Bruno, hey, how you doing?" Senator DeFrancisco. I will praise him as long as I live. John DeFrancisco is one of the greatest people, one of the most sincere people I've ever known in my life.
Well, I
I'll
know
tell you a
Mr.
very quick
Francisco.
story. He would come to my club when we moved into Franklin Square. This is where I ended my nightclub career when I bought Charlie Roden's place in Franklin Square. And
Right.
we opened for dinner. And it was a little early, 5:30-ish. We didn't open until 6:30. And John walked in the door. He was in town. He had a trial going on. His wife was down here in Florida. They have a place on the other coast. And he walked in. "Hey, John." He came in, sat down. He goes, "Hey, Todd, I'd have a dish of pasta with you before you got busy." We sat at the bar. We had a plate of pasta, a glass of wine together. We chatted. We laughed. And he saw me give my bartender the signal. And he grabbed my hand quickly. And he says, "I'll pay for my own pasta." I never want anyone to say, "I bought a vote." And I had so much respect for that man prior to that, but then beyond that, even more so. Just a terrific, wonderful, sincere person. And John DeFrancisco, you have. I'm in your corner no matter what, John. You are the man. So that was just a fun story for me, an experience. Just wow.
So I know Mr. DeFrancisco because I went to school with his kids, Drew, and I forgot what his brother's name is. Can't remember, but yeah, like he was, I think he was my first baseball coach, if I remember correctly, to be honest. Yeah, because and him still nowadays is in great health. He's still exercising and stuff. I see him at the gym all the time. Even though I highly doubt he recognizes me anymore, even though I look the same since I've been a child. But yeah, so with the comedy clubs and bringing Wise Guys to Syracuse, before Wise Guys was here, was there really that much of like a comedy like atmosphere in Syracuse, or were you guys like bringing something new to Syracuse back then?
It's the Trailblazer.
Okay.
There were a couple of places that would do some stage time. Jeff Altman would hop into like the Lost Horizon or Bobcat Goldthwait. Anywhere that they could get a stage is where they could work out. It was just a very difficult time in the 80s is when it started. So when I opened my first club in Pittsburgh, I was actually one of maybe 8 road gigs that there were to work. Aside from Los Angeles and California, there was the Improvisation, the Catch a Rising Star, Dangerfield in New York City, the Comedy Store, Mitzi Shore over in Los Angeles. So that was really the only thing going on in comedy. There were no real road gigs happening. A friend of mine who lived in the same apartment complex at the time, I was actually a disc jockey. I was a club jockey working in the discotheque.
Okay.
Spinning vinyl, baby. Oh yeah. I have leisure suits and silk shirts.
Oh my God!
I'm waiting for the leisure
back
suit
when you
could
dress like that.
Yeah. Oh wait, you're going to be wearing one day, going, "Oh, this is kind of snazzy." And I'm going, "I used to wear that before you were born, you little whippersnapper." And so it was, there was nothing going on. So a friend of mine, we had a softball team, and there were like 6 of us guys that lived in the same apartment complex. and we all played on the same softball team. So after the game, we would come home. We would all throw our uniforms in the washing machine. We'd go down to the laundry room, throw them all in together. We'd set up a card table, beers and cigars. We'd play cards while our uniforms were watching. And the one guy was from Cleveland. He says, I was home visiting my parents, and we went to this new place that just opened. It's this comedy nightclub. It was like the coolest thing. We should do that here. And I said, well, I'm in. Right away, I'm in. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm looking for something. I wanted to own a nightclub. It was one of my dreams. I want to own a nightclub and a grocery store. At the time, I was working in the grocery business. In the morning, I'd be at the store from 7 o'clock until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I would go home, freshen up, and I'd go to the club, and I'd start spinning and working my sets for that night. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd get home from the club, have a little something to eat, shower, shave, and go to the grocery store. There were days I got home in time to go to work. Kids now complain, oh, I have to work. Really? Dude, we were nonstop 48 hours sometimes. That's how it was back then.
Yeah, people have gotten lazy.
Oh, totally. I mean, it was fun. It was a great experience to remember how I did all of this. And when we went to Cleveland, there were 4 of us. We got a couple of our buddies were in the restaurant business. So 4 of us got together and said, okay, let's do this thing. Let's take a shot at it. So we drove to Cleveland, which about an hour and 40 minutes from Pittsburgh, from where we lived in South Hills. And we went to this comedy nightclub it was a great name. It was called the Cleveland Comedy Club. I mean, they put a lot of thought into that name. Wow. And the first comic I ever saw, first comedian I ever met was their house MC. His nickname at the time was Kodak, which a company that had cameras and film took exception to that because, they wanted to be the big dog. He got the name because he was a Navy SEAL. That's a whole separate story that I could get into, but I won't. His name is Dak now. We call him Dak. And
okay.
He was their house MC and one of the funniest guys I'd ever seen in my whole life. The feature attraction or the headline attraction was a guy named Kip Adada from Los Angeles, California. Kip had been in the business quite a long time. There's a TV show that if you go back to YouTube and look it up, you look at it and go, oh my God, this is so hokey. But that's how comedy was back in the early 70s when there was nothing else. It was called Make Me Laugh. And the way the game show worked is they would pull someone from the audience, they would sit in a chair, and comics had 30 seconds each to come up and try and make this person laugh. If the person didn't laugh, they win money. Kind of a cool game. I mean, there was Kip Adada, Bruce the Baby Man Baum, Vic Dunlop, Bill Kirchenbauer, some of the old folks that you probably never heard of, Gary Muledeer, guys that I ended up working with and becoming friends with were on this show. So it was kind of cool. So Kip was just amazing. He was a brilliant communicator. He was a wordsmith. And we were driving home from Cleveland, and I said, we got to do this. We're going to do it. So we started looking for a building. We found a building. We solicited everyone we ever knew, literally anyone we ever knew in our lives, to lend us money to purchase this building because none of us had any credit status. We were kids. We were in our 20s.
Right.
I was maybe 24 years old, I think, at the time. And we literally wrestled up $90,000 and purchased a building, a restaurant.
Wow.
And then we renovated ourselves. We actually quit our jobs. I got a part-time job so we could eat. Here's what I did. I worked for Meals on Wheels. And I would deliver meals to people, in the morning up until like noonish. And when I would get back to the kitchen, the ladies in the kitchen, I got very friendly with. They were very nice. And it was always leftover stuff. And all they're going to do with that is throw it out. So they would make me packages and I would take it with me. I'd go to the club. We were sleeping on cardboard boxes in the club.
Oh my God! Wow.
We couldn't afford the part. We gave up our jobs. And we were negotiating and putting things in place to get this place open. And after the renovations, we hired a marketing and advertising firm. That was all the money we had left in our coffer. And this thing took off like a rocket. We were sold out every night for easily 3 years in a row, 9 shows a week. We did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday 2 shows, Saturday 3 shows, Sunday 1 show. Tuesday night was amateur night where we developed talent. So this thing we had $100 that I borrowed from a friend to put in the cash register to open that night, to make change at the bar.
Right.
I went and I took a bar management, bartending class. We understood management because we were all in business. The restaurant guys got the restaurant up and running. And my brother was actually one of our chefs. He was just a good cook. That's all. We did it on a shoestring. And
so he wasn't like cooking for like another job. You were just like, hey, you can cook. Why don't you come?
Yeah, he was in college.
Okay. Oh wow.
He was a college student, and he was a pretty good cook. We hired a guy who was a cook from a diner who was pretty good, and the two of them actually were known. We became known for the best shrimp scampi in the city of Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow.
We would sell like 150 pounds of shrimp between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night shows.
Holy crap. Real.
These guys were just unbelievable. It was a monster. It was a juggernaut. So because of the success of that place, it happened so quick. We figured, well, Pittsburgh's a pretty big city. Let's see if we can find a place on the other side of town that we could open something up. And we went to a place called the Holiday House, which was a big entertainment theater. Before casinos were casinos, it was a showroom, it was a hotel, a restaurant. It was that kind of a property where you could call it a resort, if you will.
Okay.
And, you would see people like the Temptations, the Four Tops. That's how far back I go, dude.
Well, that's not that far back. I mean, the Temptations rock.
Back. Yeah. This is the original Temptations, not the makeup band that you guys see now. And we made a deal with them. They had a banquet room downstairs that they rarely used. We rented it, and that became my second club. So we had two clubs going in Pittsburgh at the same time. So, in 1 week I had...
And how long in between opening the first club and getting the second club? What was the time frame between those?
8 months.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, 8 months. We just hit it. We went bang. We did it again.
Okay.
And now we're rubber stamping a process that we began to refine over the course of that time, so we could do this. We wanted to do it again and again. We were going to become like the power, and we were. We became known so quickly and so readily by everyone in the comedy industry. I had guys, I sent you an article that was kind of cool. It was an advertisement that we had in the Pittsburgh newspaper. This was just, 2 weekends. I had Jay Leno in one club, Gary Shandling in the other, Jim Carrey in one club, and Shirley Hemphill in the other club. That's the kind of people we had. Pat Paulson ran for president in 1969. We became really great friends. He worked the club a million times. Great story. I got a shitload of great stories. One story.
So that clipping, I'm pulling up now. Okay. I thought I had it up there, but I guess I did not. There we go.
Ah, there it is. Yeah. So that's an advertisement for the Pittsburgh newspaper in the entertainment section. In my South Hills club, the first club, I had Jim Carrey. The same weekend, in the club on the east, I had Gary Shandling.
Jeez.
And then the following week, in my downtown club, I had Jay Leno. And in my East Club, I had Shirley Ann Hemphill, which you might not remember. She was on on a show called What's Happening.
Yep.
Yeah, Waitress with an Attitude. Shirley, right. What a wonderful, wonderful person. She passed away. Gary passed away. It was magical. But back then, it was just, these are people. These are just my friends. They
right.
work for us all the time.
So the shots of them in these pictures, though, are these like what they were using as headshots for the moment being?
That's their promo shots. That's their headshots.
Yep, I thought so.
Yeah.
Jeez, Jim Carrey.
Unbelievable. Look at that. He was Jim Carrey. I was
from Canada.
That was part of the first stop actually on his first U.S. tour. He was 18 years old in that picture. Not old enough to be in most of the clubs in the U.S. because they were 21 drinking age.
Right.
So his manager, Ron Scribner was his name, had to travel with him and had papers as legal guardianship so that Jim could get into the clubs that he was working. So that's where they started, and they started their swing, went across the country to L.A., and that's where he ended up in L.A. He did a show called The Duck Factory, was his first sitcom that he did before he did the show with the Wayans brothers. Oh, man, he was magical. He was magical. When he came a couple of days early excuse me, and I didn't have a hotel room for him, so he stayed at my apartment. So Jim and his manager Ron stayed at my place. So it was kind of cool, and then here we are years later. I go, yeah, he slept on my couch. But he did. It was just, it's something that happened in that day and age. It was just a cool experience that I get to reminisce about now. Jerry Seinfeld is another really cool story that happened. Again, we're talking 1980, 1981, when my club was really cranking in Pittsburgh. Jerry had already worked a date for me, and we did like a 6-month turnaround. So we would rebook those that really did well. We'd bring them back in 6 months, so we could keep the train running, so to speak. People would remember him. Oh, you got to see this guy. We saw him. He was great. And this is before they had like major TV credits and stuff. There was no major TV yet. There was Johnny Carson. And that was Merv Griffin. That was it.
Right.
So not a whole lot of opportunity. So these guys are just now getting their teeth wet or their feet wet in the business. So Jerry calls me. He says, hey, I got a date coming up with you. He says, do you mind if I bring my own feature ad? I says, no, I don't mind at all, Jerry. Who is it? He says, well, he's worked for you also. His name's Gary Shandling. I said, well, I know Gary. Gary's worked here. He goes, yeah, he mentioned that he has a return date with me either. Yeah, let's do it. So it was Jerry Seinfeld and Gary Shandling were my show. The third act, my house MC. I liked having a guy that was recognizable, defining the image of the club. It was Dennis Miller. Dennis Miller was my house MC. He was from Pittsburgh, and this was his first opportunity to be on a stage regularly, and he was just a brilliant comic, and the right act to have up front. So my show is Jerry Seinfeld, Gary Shandling, Dennis Miller. And then Jerry says to me, would you mind, we're working on a writing project together. Our third writing partner would like to come up for the weekend. He doesn't want stage time, but if you could just get him a hotel room at your rate, we'd appreciate it. I go, yeah, who is it? He goes, well, it's Larry David. So I have Larry David, Gary Shandling, Jerry Seinfeld hanging out in my club for the weekend with Dennis Miller. The writing project they were working on, Seinfeld.
Jeez.
So it was so cool when that show, I was there. I remember when that started. That was so cool. And to me, it was just a cool thing that I go, yeah, it's in my memory banks. That happened, and I happened to be there. How cool.
Yeah, I mean, especially Seinfeld well, Jerry, he still does comedy, right? He's still doing stand up.
Yeah, Jerry just he never lost the fire desire to be on stage. He's Jerry.
Which that's what I've heard that's kind of like the case, because I mean I was listening to because Adam Sandler has gotten back into doing stand up again, and he said it took him, well, he stopped for like 20 odd years or whatever, and it took him for someone just offering like, hey, I got a couple spots at this. Do you want to come and do some bits? And he's like, yeah, actually do that. And then after that, he asked his this guy he knew, a buddy of his, and he was like, yeah, I mean, if you want to try and book me some shows, go ahead and do it. And he ended up booking him like a 10-city tour and some of them a bunch. And he's like, I never looked back. He was like, but one thing I wanted to ask you is, have you ever done any corporate comedy, anything?
Yes.
How bad is that? Okay. Now tell me about this experience.
Yeah, nobody likes doing them. I've done a few of them. I personally do not profess myself to be a comedian by any stretch of the imagination. Because it was desire of mine to be on stage and to represent, it was my business. I felt like what I did every night is I hosted a party for 200 people. You're coming to my house. I want to be there to welcome you. So I learned how to be funny. I wrote some stuff. I refined the stuff. But more than anything, I just had the gift of welcoming. And I could stand on stage and make people feel welcome into my home. And that's really what I wanted to do and what I did for 30 plus years. And, by and by, I got to be kind of funny, kind of humorous is all I'm going to say. Not great by any stretch. I had some good bits, some funny bits. But more than anything, I was just there to do one thing, is set up the audience. So people would want to hire me. Oh, yeah, come on, will you do? Yeah, all right, sure. And it's they're in the middle of their freaking dinner. People have pork chops and chicken legs and stuff, and they're chomping on. How can you laugh with half a pork chop in your face? Tell me that. You can't. So all
Right.
you're hearing is dishes clanking, and you're looking at people looking at you sideways while they're biting into their chicken leg. It's awful. It's awful.
Jeez.
And aside from that, okay, maybe the meal was over and they're having their coffee. They just want to go back to their hotel room and hook up with the waitress or the secretary, have a couple of cocktails. That the game is over for them. They've been in this all day long. It's not a pleasant experience, no matter what. So yeah, it is brutally awful. Always brutally awful.
So with like corporate events, I when I went to Nashville this past year for a business thing, we basically like, the whole company got together and they hired a comedian to MC the whole time or whatever. Let me see if I can. No, I'm not gonna remember his name. But he was a really funny guy and stuff like that, and that's where I started thinking about stand up because I did this thing. So before we were going on this trip, our boss basically said like make sure to like volunteer for stuff, make sure to do stuff, don't just be a fly on the wall, make yourself known. Because some people can get fired during this time, some people can get let go. Like you gotta be on your best behavior. So I was like, okay, done. So when we got there, pretty much anytime they asked for like people for help or anything like that, I rose my hand. And so they had this one game that they were doing because they constantly did games to give out stuff throughout the time that we were there. And one of the games is they basically gave you a slideshow of random Google images that made no sense and that you had to make sense with what we sold and then utilize the slide. And so I got picked for this, and I was like one of four people or whatever. And they did the slides. I did them. I killed. People were laughing hysterically or whatever. And then a weird thing happened after that for like the next, well, until I left. Pretty much a bunch of people kept stopping me in the hotel and stuff like that, asking to take pictures with me and stuff. People that I didn't know their names and stuff. And it was very like it felt like I just did like a good stand up thing, and people were like fans of me. It was very weird. And then people also kept like asking me, have I done this before? And everything like that. And I was like, no. And they were like, well, you should. And so since then, I've been starting to write comedy. And I went to Zanies when I was in Nashville, which was nice. Because that was the first time that I've ever gotten to really go to like a professional comedy club. Because we did have and by the way, I was going to ask you this. Were you in control, or did you have any say in the Wise Guys that was down in the village of Camillus for a momentary period?
What happened was this.
Okay.
I'll tell you the story of Wise Guys. I came to Syracuse in 1985 from San Antonio, Texas. I had opened 2 clubs in San Antonio, Texas. When I left Pittsburgh, I was solicited by an investment banker who came into the club one night. He says, can you do this in Texas? I went, I can do this anywhere. I can do it in the forest and make people come. He says, I own some property in Texas. Would you like to come down and do it? And I went, yeah, yeah. So I did 2 clubs in San Antonio, Texas, and then came to Syracuse in 1985, and I opened the first comedy nightclub in Syracuse. I was there, let's see, we were on Bruce Street, and then I moved down onto Erie Boulevard in the basement of a Mexican restaurant, which was purely economics. It was getting really expensive to try and maintain that whole building. So we did a collection, but the image of that restaurant, I'll just say it that way, was not favorable, and I needed to get out of there. And at that time, the city started to solicit me to move to downtown. We want you in downtown Syracuse. We want you downtown. And that's when the Hotel Syracuse had just been bought by a family. We won't talk about that family either. They were legitimate business people. And, I moved into the Hotel Syracuse, which was formerly known as the Library, which is now, I think, an Irish pub of some sort. And it was, I really loved that room. It was really a great room. I had a lot of great fun there. And that's where I kind of lost my flavor. I just kind of I wasn't having fun anymore. And I just wanted to get out. I wanted to step out. So I stepped out and just started exploring options. I worked for Harley Davidson for about 9 years. At the same time, I was still producing shows and managing talent, which, my heart never left that part of the business. But the
Right.
club business was just grinding me. And I was also training in martial arts at the time, and I was competing. 1990, I won the U.S. National Championship. I'm U.S. National Flyweight Champion in Taekwondo,
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm a seventh degree black belt right now. I still train. So I had, my head was like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? You start to feel like, is this all I have? Is this all I got?
Right.
And a few years passed, and my older son was already in Florida. He went to the University of Central Florida. My
Okay.
younger son was about to leave for Ithaca to go to do his undergrad work at Ithaca. And when he left, I had nothing left in Syracuse. I was headed back to Pittsburgh. I'm going home.
Okay.
You boys know where I am. I know how to get to you. You know how to get to me. And
Right.
he said to me, Dad, it'd be really cool if you just stayed here in Syracuse and opened a club again, and I could go back on holidays and stuff and see all my friends. And I went, really? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Really? And so I said, I'll think about it. So I had a family friend approach me and say, we had dinner. This was just a couple of nights after that. And he said, I have a proposal for you. If you open the club again, I'll partner with you. I'll back it. And I
Okay.
said, dude, I'm just, and Marco, my son, looks at me. And I went, how do I say no to this kid? How do I say no to my son? So I did it. That's when I moved into Charlie Roman's old place. I bought Charlie Roman's building down in Franklin Square and stayed there for a little over a year. But during that year, I remembered why I left the business to begin with. I just wasn't feeling it anymore. So
Okay.
I stepped out again. I did a show. I did some shows actually for a while. I called it the Comedy Stimulus Tour, where I went to different locations all over the city each week. McNamara's was
Okay.
the name of the place in Camillus. It was a big joint. I did a couple of shows there one night, and then I did a couple of shows over at the Big Round Hotel. It was a Holiday Inn at that time, downtown, and I just anywhere in the city. What's a place down in Armory Square? It's a nightclub, Franklin's on Franklin or something of that nature. I can't remember the name of it now. I haven't been there in a long time.
CJ's or something like that?
Whatever it
Or
is.
no, Funkin' Waffles?
Nope. Across, just as you come down Franklin, it's on the right on the corner. Really cool joint. But
I'm
I
so
did a
bad at
bunch of shows
geography, I
there
do
for
not
a
know.
while. I actually had Michael Winslow there from Police Academy movies.
Oh, wow.
Michael, what a cool guy. So after that, I said, I'm not feeling it anymore. I've been writing my notes to get out of the business. This was 2010 or 2008 rather. I'm sorry, 2008. I just said, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm not having fun. And I did my last show at the Dinosaur Barbecue when they opened the second floor.
Oh, okay.
I was the very first show on that location on the second floor. It was my very last show, and I did it with my longtime friend Jimmy Walker, JJ Dynamite from from his TV show. I said, Jimmy, this is my last show. This is it. I'm done. He said, the great Bruno retiring? You'll be back. I said, no, Jimmy, I'm done. But he was actually right. I came back and stayed in the business for a bit after that. So long story short, I was not responsible for that atrocity in Camillus.
Okay, because
I was not responsible for the atrocity it was down where the brew pub ended up being, down on Salina Street.
Right.
It had nothing to do with that atrocity either.
So the reason I brought it up is because back when they were renovating, well, first of all, Not when they renovated that building, when I renovated that fucking building, because I fixed that entire building my fucking self, cleaned
Yeah,
the entire basement myself. I was the reason why that Wise Guy's place opened up as fast as it did. And the lady, I can't remember her name. You might be able to remember who I'm talking about.
I don't want
She
to trash anybody. I'm
no,
not.
yeah, we
That's
won't
not my
mention names,
game. I just
but
yeah.
yeah, so she had offered me a job as long as I did what needed to be done.
Uh-huh.
So I did what needed to be done, but she wanted me to come early one morning to like talk about the job or talk about what position to get or whatever. And I had overslept. And this is like when I'm like a sophomore or junior in high school. So oversleeping, it happens. Anyway, cut to I say, I'm sorry, I apologize, I overslept. Would I be able to come in this afternoon to talk about the position? And then she just wrote in all caps, no. And then I was like, oh, okay, all right. So all right, I guess I helped you for no reason. That's great. Because my whole thing was is I really wanted to be part of the comedy club, because I wanted to see comedy acts and stuff like that up and close and personal. And also I've heard that like people that work there tend to make good money and stuff like that, but it just did not work out that way. Which, I mean, obviously it worked out in my favor because it's not there anymore. Even though, I mean, I'm pretty sure that building's cursed. Anything that goes in there does not last.
I've heard.
Yeah, they're planning to put a burned dairy there now next. I mean, that's probably the only thing that could survive there if they do put that there, and that would be only because of soft serve ice cream, because we don't have that here. Yeah, we used to have one in the village, but we don't, which is annoying. But getting back to comedy a little bit. So, with or back in like around the 80s stuff like that, did you ever have Kennison or
Sam
Kennison and
Kinison. I met Sam Kinison in Houston. When I was in San Antonio, Texas, I would go up to Houston, Dallas, and showcase guys, to see what talent was in the vicinity. Kinison was working out at a place called the Comics Annex in Houston. Made a lot of friends up there. There was Kinison, and oh gosh, he passed away. He was super funny, and I wish I could remember his name again. Dude, I'm going to be 70 in
understandable?
2 months.
Somebody will figure it out.
Yeah, but and then I would go up to Dallas. Dallas, I met Bill Engvall, Ron White.
Okay.
These guys showcased for me, and then they would drive down to San Antonio to showcase for me in my club. So
Okay.
Jeff Foxworthy was one of those guys too. So
Oh wow.
yeah, I know all of those guys from that segment. Mike Vance, and what a great bunch of guys. What a lot of fun we had. And there was another club that they had control of in Austin. So I had two in San Antonio. We had Austin, we had Houston, we had Dallas. So I created the same kind of network in Texas that I had up north in Pittsburgh and Ohio. When we
Right.
had things going up there too, which at the same time I was doing that as well. So I had five clubs actually. This is before I opened Wise Guys. 5 clubs spinning those plates all at once from San Antonio, Texas. So every week I was on a plane going from Texas to Pittsburgh, stop in Ohio, back to Texas. It was grueling, but you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I learned so much in all of those years doing what I did. I was actually recognized in Comedy USA magazine, which is an industry publication, as one of the top 3 comedy nightclub owners in the country. It was me, Caroline's in New York City, and the Improv in New York City, Silver Friedman, who I absolutely love her. Had a lot of fun going down to New York and hanging out with Silver. Got to be very good friends with her. I would go to New York, from Pittsburgh over to New York and showcase talent there. Met a lot of great talents down there. A couple of fun nights at the Improv. One night I remember distinctly. I'm sitting at a table watching a friend who was the MC that night. Ron Darien was his name. He's on stage, and I could see outside from the table that Silver put me at. The limousine pulls up. Rodney gets out of the limo. He was showcasing a dude for one of his young comedy specials. Rodney comes into the joint like Rodney. She puts him at the table adjacent to me. We introduce each other kind of quietly. Rodney orders a martini. Before the guy hits the stage that he came to see, Rodney's head hit the table, out cold.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my God. Yeah, but that was Rodney. That's what he did.
Right.
Met a lot of other great talents down there. Again, I don't want to badmouth anybody, but Robin Williams came in one night. Mark
Well, I
Schiff
mean,
was
that's
on
not bad
stage.
mouthing, you know?
Well, when you hear the story, it kind of is. And it's who he
Okay.
was. It's who everyone knew he was. Mark Schiff's on
Right.
stage. Robin, you see his shadow in the doorway, and all the comics start going. Schiff sees the shadow and doesn't even finish the bit he was doing. He walked right off the stage. The rumor was, which was true, the next thing out of your mouth becomes Robin's next bit. So there was a
Hmm.
lot of that going on in the business at that time. It was difficult for the guys that really had writing talent to protect their stuff because there was no way that you could trademark or patent words.
Right.
We discovered this because I actually was a founding father of the National Association of Comedy Club Owners. And we did a lot of legal research, a lot of insurance work, a lot of talent development work together. Myself and a guy from the Atlantic City clubs called the Comedy Stops, Bob Kephart. He had Atlantic City and Las Vegas. Bob and I were very good friends, and we actually started this organization together. We had a guy from Detroit who got in and a guy from Cincinnati. So back then it was kind of a cutthroat business, and it got more cutthroat as the years progressed and through the 80s, because now everybody and his brother wanted to put a microphone on a stage in their bar and call it a comedy room.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it really started to dilute the business and the trade, because
Right.
anyone who ever told a joke in front of their family or at the Walmart company picnic believed that they were a comic, and they're going to get on this stage and profess themselves as a comic and just really, really fail it.
Right.
So it got to be really tough. And then there were some other organizations that came in and started opening comedy rooms and calling themselves, we're a chain. We're a chain. Yeah, you're in a fucking mall. That's who you are.
Exactly.
You're the Mall Comedy Club, and I think you know who I'm talking about now.
Oh, I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about. And
they
I've
opened
honestly never stepped foot in their
good,
establishment,
and
and I
I
don't
never
plan to.
will either. I know those people. When I opened my first club in 1979, 1.5 years later, they opened 1.2 miles from my front door. And they started to create the black ball. If you work for him, you can't work for me. And I'm paying more than him. You know what? When a comic called me and said that, I says, you know what? You have your own conscience. You do what you believe is right for you. I will never
Right.
say that to an entertainer. It's business. I understand. You have to make a living. And you know what? I got respect because I had integrity.
Right.
And in that, I stayed in business for 30 plus years. And I got out of business because I chose to. I chose to retire from it. It's not because I went out of business because I couldn't hold the candle. I could hold the candle today. I've
Right.
seen the acts. I know the acts that they put on their stage. They're people that I wouldn't hire. And that's why they were working those stages. It got a little cutthroat. It got a little cutthroat through the mid 80s. It got really hard. But, the loyalty factors with the real entertainers stayed. Like I maintained, relationships with Jerry and Jay. I mean, Jay Leno came to Syracuse to do a show at the Landmark Theater, and he asked for me. We got together when he got to town. He remembered the names of my waitresses and my bar staff. And, Jay is he's a stand-up guy, man, just a wonderful person. First time he came to Pittsburgh, my club in Pittsburgh, he had never been to Pittsburgh before. After the show, I took him for a ride into the city before I dropped him at the hotel. His wife Mavis was with him, who they're still together, 30, 40 some years together. God bless them.
Nice.
And we're in my car, and he recants this story. We were in your gold Camaro, as I recall. Mavis in the back seat. Yeah, that's exactly it. And we're coming down. If you've never been to Pittsburgh, it's called the Parkway, and it comes from the airport through downtown. So as you're coming through, you come into this area where you're coming down it's like a mountain pass. It's beautiful greenage, and there's this hillside mountain in front of you and a tunnel. And you go into this tunnel, and on the other side of the tunnel is, bam, there's the city. it's so panoramic. It's really awesome. So we're in the tunnel, and I said to Jay, on the other side of the tunnel, Jay, the city just kind of smacks you in the face. And he goes, Mavis, we should duck. That could hurt.
My
That was
God.
just classic Jay. He was always on. He always had something clever and cute as he went along. Really cool. I had Dave Coulier. You know who Dave is from Full House.
Right,
And,
yeah.
Dave was a young guy from Detroit. He worked out at the place in Detroit quite a bit, and then he started to come out.
I didn't know he was from Detroit.
Yeah, originally from
Okay.
Detroit, a hockey player.
That I can see.
Yeah, and he was working my club on a weekend, and he went out back behind the club, out the kitchen door to catch some air between shows, and I went out to catch some air with him, and here comes these 3-4 thugs from the city down the back alley, and thought they'd pick a fight with a hockey player and a martial artist.
And how did that work out for them?
Well, it wasn't a good night for those young men. Dave and I had a real good time.
Jeez.
It just kind of, and again, another, fun story. I was on a guy named Rich Scheidner told a story about a comic named Ollie Joe Prater. Rich was working my club in the East Side, and Ollie Joe Prater was at my club on the South. Ollie Joe was notorious for stealing. Ollie Joe did the best of everyone. Yeah,
Okay.
He was about 5'4", 350 pounds. He wore a cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and he'd walk on stage. He demanded a 6-pack and an ice bucket on the stage. And every time he would raise a shot glass, it was water unless a customer bought it for him. If a customer bought it, it was real tequila.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good hustle, to be honest.
Yeah. Third show Saturday night, Ollie Joe Prater in the middle of the show started to sway.
Oh,
and he
no.
Fell back flat on his back on stage, out cold. We dragged him off the stage. Richie Scheidner was at my club on the East Side. He had come down because he didn't have a midnight show up there, so he came down to the main club. And we go, Richie. So Richie jumped on stage and finished the show.
Did he get a concussion or anything from the fall?
It just took him until the next day to recover. Make sure he got on the plane to go home. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And, I have so many fun stories. I think one of the most impressive comedy performances that I recall.
Hang on one second. Wait, real quick. Do you have to go into the bathroom? Because I have to go to the bathroom.
You go ahead. I'm going to sit right here and get myself another cocktail.
Okay. All right, give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that, folks. I'm back. All right, back to what Bruno was saying. Continue.
Yeah, I forgot.
So you said you were speaking about one of the most impressive performances that you were seeing back in the day.
You back? I can't see. Oh, there you are. Oh man, I just messed up. Are you there?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, I got you. Okay, good. So, one of the most impressive performances that I remember. Comic named Larry Miller. Larry's still around, but Larry went. He didn't do a lot of stand-up in clubs because he didn't have to. He had such a great personality and a great manner about him. He went straight to motion pictures.
Oh, Larry Miller. Okay, now I know who you're talking about.
See a picture of him, and you could name like 5 movies that you've seen.
Yeah, so for people that
always pays like the corporate boss or something,
for people that don't know,
that's Larry right there. Yeah. What a guy, man! What a terrific guy.
He's so funny.
Well, the first time Larry was on my stage, I'm standing in the back of the room. It's a Saturday night, full room, 245 people fit in that room. Larry's on stage. He's doing a story about skiing down a mountain, and there's these young kids that are showing him up all the way down the mountain. And Larry's thing was, in conversation with comics, how do you just talking about their writing styles and their performance styles. And Larry says, he likes to paint a picture in people's minds so vivid that they believe that they're there. And a picture with words. And he was such a craftsman at doing that. He's doing the skiing story, and I'll just never forget standing in the back of the room watching 245 heads doing this.
Oh my God, dude.
Weaving down the mountain, thinking that the picture that he painted, and he was standing still. but everyone in the room was, to me, that blew me away. I thought that was one of the most fascinating things I'd ever seen a comic
Well, I mean,
able
that
to do.
just proves he was doing what he was trying to do. He was
Yeah,
getting
that
them
was his
in
thing.
in
Yeah,
the setting of what he was trying to talk
yeah,
about.
yeah. My
Um,
opening night in Pittsburgh, my very first club, very first night I was in business. I had a comic named Marc Weiner, who some of you young whippersnappers might remember a show on Nickelodeon called Weinerville with Marc Weiner and the Weinerettes. And that's who this was. He was my first act ever. Uh, Rocco Wineretto was his primary puppet. He had a very unique way of puppeteering. He was
okay,
on
now
Saturday
I
Night
know
Live also.
exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, just a great guy. We were so close, almost like brothers. There he is. That's Weinerville right there. And
So yeah, and you said Mark Weiner?
Marc Weiner is his name. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Now he's not only done he that's what he I know exactly where I've seen him from now. He was on he played one of the teachers from Ned's Classified School Survival Guide where like he used a puppet or whatever.
he did. Yes.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, he was the very first act I ever put on my stage. And
Wow.
opening night, he says to me, he goes, "We want to do something special. We want to do something these people will never forget." There was news cameras there. That's how big a deal it was in Pittsburgh. We were trailblazers.
Wow.
And Mark, he says, "How much money do you have in your pocket?" And I'm thinking, well, we donated $100 to the cash register. I said, "I got like
Right.
$40." He goes, "I got 60. Let's take everyone in the audience next door to McDonald's and get them a small Coke with no ice." And that's what we did. 245 people lined up, followed us outside my door, across the parking lot into McDonald's. And Mark and I stood at the counter and ordered one small Coke, no ice, as each person stepped up. The news camera, we were going crazy filming this. And the girl quit her job that night. But we managed to talk her into coming back. We didn't want to, we said we were doing a publicity stunt. We weren't here to mess with you. That was just one of the coolest things ever. And then you might have heard of Andy Kaufman doing the cookies and milk thing down in the Improv in New York City. Well, Mark did that before. Oh
I
yeah.
didn't. So wait, what about
Oh
the
yeah.
cookies and milk? I
Andy
hadn't heard about
Kaufman.
this.
Yeah, Andy Kaufman was doing a show at the Improv in New York City, and he took the whole audience out for cookies and milk after the show.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty
That's
cool.
I can see Andy doing something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, that just reminded me of another Jay Leno thing. When Jay was at my club, so we would book together. So he would do a show at my club, and then he would go to Cleveland, and then go to my club in Warren, Ohio. So we would give like 3 weeks of work, and guys, it was a great month for them because they were working all month.
At this point, was he like just living on the road, or
He
did he have some?
he was starting to get some major credits. He'd done the Tonight Show a couple of times. He'd been with
Right.
Merv Griffin. He was on the show I told you about earlier called Make Me Laugh.
Right.
Jay was pretty well recognized as an entertainer at this point, since he was opening for some major acts and concert and stuff.
Okay.
So he was one of the biggest stars in the business. So people knew who he was. And here they are coming to see him at my club in 1980 for $15. Now you can't get a ticket to see him for $1,500. So he says, so we finished our run on Sunday night. He wasn't due in Cleveland until Wednesday. So, I booked a hotel room for him for Monday night, and then he would go to Cleveland Tuesday, and they pick up his hotel on Tuesday and for the rest of their run. And he says to me on Thursday, he says, I got to thinking, we're off on Monday. Why don't we do something nice? Let's do 2 shows Monday night for unemployed people in Pittsburgh. No charge. 100% free.
Okay.
I get my people on it. I got my marketing people on it. We got it on the news. It was on the radio. It became one of the biggest things in the city. I can't believe how it spread like wildfire. We
And for
sold
you
out.
young folks at home, that's what we used to use to get things out into the public before
Yeah.
social media.
There was no social media. There was no
Right.
internet. There was no cell phones. People had
Back when you had to
pagers.
actually grind to get the word out.
Yeah, I'll tell you a great pager story. And so we sold out these 2 shows. So the second show goes off at 10:45. Now, I mean, these are people that you had a card that identified you as being on unemployment. So people would present that card at the front door, come on in. When the room filled, it filled. We'd wait for the next show. So the second show goes off at 10:45. Dennis Miller's on stage, the MC opening the show. And I had a local guy named Jimmy Kren, who became huge in the city of Pittsburgh. He was on DVE radio for 25 years. And so Jay and I are standing outside the showroom door with the news reporter, 11 o'clock news, live hit from Wise Guy, from the Pittsburgh Comedy Club. Great name, huh? And
Right.
Jay takes the stage to a standing ovation. These people are on their feet, the news reporter, the camera's panning. They come back to Jay on stage. As the room quiets, he goes, I've never seen a room full of a bigger bunch of deadbeats in my life. Why don't you people get a job? Okay, the news reporter is sliding down the door laughing so hard, as am I. Everyone in the room was banging tables. It was just hysterical. It was just, Jay knew how to light up a room. He was
And
just,
how long was his set?
oh, he'd do like 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah, he stayed on stage, man. He was.
So, and because when like after once Jay got his talk show and everything, and I know that he had a little bit of beef with some of the other people that ended up having like talk shows and stuff like that. Like, do you know any behind the scenes of like any of that was going on?
Jay never had a beef with anyone. They may have had a beef with him, but Jay's just a stand-up guy. And if somebody upset him or pissed him off in some way, he probably just said, whatever. And
Okay.
he may have commented on it, but Jay didn't beef with anyone ever for any reason.
Okay.
That's the Jay I know.
I didn't. It seemed a little weird when I was like hearing things about it because like he doesn't seem like the person to do that. Plus, great. Does he? 'Cause, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. Does he still have his talk show? I'm not sure.
No, Jay has Jay's Garage. I think is still on. I stay out of touch with a lot of stuff. I don't watch TV. Honestly, my wife and I just we have so many other cool things that we like to do. We don't even
Right.
watch TV. So as far as I know, Jay's Garage is still on.
Okay, and what I haven't heard of that. What exactly is that? Is
Oh man, it's a
something to
cool
do with cars?
show. He is a car and motorcycle fanatic.
Oh, okay.
And he started a whole line of products, car cleaning products, car care products. And
Oh, really? Does it have like his name on it or something, or is it a different
yeah,
brand or?
yeah, oh, yeah. Jay's
Okay.
Garage. Yeah, he's branded.
Okay.
And all his exotic cars are on display, or people that have an exotic car, he'll go and visit them and they'll talk about the car and take a ride in it. Yeah, pretty cool show. People love it.
So, like with like those car shows, I watch like some of the, I don't know if you have seen any of like the restoration shows where they like restore
Yeah,
cars or whatever.
yeah, chop shops, yeah.
Yeah, but it's crazy the stuff that people can do with these vehicles and stuff like that. Or actually, you want to know, it's crazy the amount of money people will spend to get this stuff done
Oh
and
my
stuff
God,
like that.
insane.
And especially, I mean, you don't see them that often here, but you do see them occasionally here, especially when that big car show comes in. I forgot what the hell it's called. Yeah, the Nationals. But I saw the other day when I was driving back home, I saw a dude in a monster truck on the street, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't want to say you might be a little man on the inside, but you kind of seem like it. Also, it was all chrome underneath. It had like blue, flames on. It was something you would see in Dukes of Hazzard if it was back in the day. It was crazy. And the amount of, well, not only the amount of money I spent to pay for that vehicle, but also the gas amount. I mean, you probably have to fill that up every time you drive from one place to another. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
But
Jay's a purist. He's a collector. So
okay.
everything you saw him is absolutely perfect condition, restored, and classic vintage. That's
Okay, well that's how it should be, you know.
that's Jay's thing.
Especially with the old classic vehicles. You don't mess with something that's already perfect,
Yep.
especially because cars, I don't know what it was about like the 60s and 70s, but just the way the shape of the cars and just the way that they drove were just so much better. And then we hit like a wicked sharp decline like through the 80s and 90s. And then now people think we're still on a rise, but I still think we're not. I still think cars back then were better. I mean, they were constructed better. I mean, you know, and when you crashed, you know, you didn't get shredded. You know, they actually protected you and stuff like that. Actually, speaking of which, have you ever seen the so it's a video of right after originally, you know what, like originally seatbelts weren't a law, right?
I grew up. My mother's arm was the original seat belt. I'd be standing on the front seat, and her arm would go out like that's the original seat belt, and the dashboard was metal. Yeah, that's how old I
So
am, Jesse.
so there's people talking about it right after they passed the law.
Uh-huh.
And the stuff you're seeing and the stuff that they're saying is crazy. I'm gonna pull it up. Video right after.
Everybody gets hurt about everything. A glass of
Well,
wine in
nowadays,
advance.
yes.
Move
I
it,
mean,
Florida.
that's why I love how comedy has made such a sharp return, because we're getting finally back into the style of, you know, comedy is comedy and people
It's
understand that.
not real for crying out loud.
And that's what I try. So because a lot of the comedians that I like, my wife doesn't like, and I try to explain to her. I'm like, the things that they're saying, the reason they're saying it is because they think it themselves. It's preposterous for them to be saying it. That's why they think it's funny. Like that's why a majority of comedians make it, is because they have that sense of letting go of reality and kind of messing with it. You know, which is the best part of comedy is turning turning reality into what everyone else perceives it to be.
A friend of mine, comedian Bruce the Baby Man Baum, said it best. He said, "Comedy is looking at life through a demented prism." When you think about it, you go, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." No
Yeah.
more for you, dude. Somebody take that cocktail out of his hand.
All right,
That's true.
I got it. Here we go. Oh, gotta turn the volume up. Okay, so this is back in the 80s.
Still, any attempt to restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting common this when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink one or two beers.
Oh my god. You got the kid in the front car, in the front seat, the baby.
Normal.
Please,
Still, any
pretty
attempt
sure
to
we're gonna be a
restrict
communist
drinking and
country.
driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting common this when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck one or two beers.
Jesus, like the thoughts of people back then, it blows my mind how far we've come with safety and all that stuff.
Oh my God, yeah.
But when it comes to, and I was one of those people. Well, I'm not gonna say everything we did around COVID was terrible, but I'm gonna say that locking people up for 6 months was a terrible thing. Not only for everybody's like mentality, but one thing that like I'm pretty sure the government didn't think about at all was like the mom and pop shops that have ran for years with a consistent basis of people actually coming in, where they didn't have the system set up for online or doing anything of that in nature, and a lot of restaurants that were good ended up going away during that time, which sucked.
History. However, my mom is 94 years old. And when this pandemic hit, she said to me, "Bruno, this is just the next thing I get to deal with." She lived through World War II, and she lived through the influenza pandemic, and that's where all the masking up came from. You know, there was a
Right.
pandemic that killed millions of people that we know as the flu now,
Right.
and that's what COVID-19, the coronavirus, is becoming now. adaptation. Our systems are creating antibodies naturally now. The common cold is a coronavirus, and it
And that
continues to morph, and that's why you get it every year. And that's what this virus is doing too. So it's never going away. It just, when it
right.
hit us initially, it hit us in a way that our body wasn't accustomed to recognizing any of that and had no defense system for, and it killed a ton of people. And the only way to try and control it was to get it out of community. Do I agree or disagree? It wasn't my call to make, but I just did the right thing. My wife was in the healthcare industry. She
Okay.
handled the virus, and she said to me when this thing started, she said, 6 months, it's going to be 5 years.
And I can't even imagine what she dealt with being in the medical field during that time. I mean,
it was
the horrors.
brutally difficult for her and everyone else, but she was with the company that was selling the virus, the test kits. So welcome to Florida. Thank you, Mike.
Right. I heard
it was a lucrative
horror.
business at that point, but not that it was about the business. It was about saving lives and saving people, and
Right,
it still
and
is. We get on an airplane and somebody sneezes, we mask up. My wife and I, when we travel, we still mask up. Ounce of prevention. I'm 70. I want to live to be 80, and I'll take a precaution that will help curb the propensity for me to be infected again. I've been infected before. It's awful, but
I will agree with you on that. I was one of those people that I was like, it can't be that bad, and then I got it, and then I was like, I apologize to everybody that I ever said that to. It is bad.
So, and you don't want to give that to someone else, especially my 94-year-old mother or my niece that was just an infant at the time. I'm going to kill a baby because I chose not to drip snot on them and not put a mask on. That's what it was about. It wasn't about stopping the economy or stopping businesses. It was about stopping a killer. It was deadly. There's so many different conspiracy theories about what caused it or where it came from. It doesn't matter where it came from. It came from somewhere. We dealt with it, and now we've moved along, and we get to talk about it. Years later, here we are. We made it. We got another thing that we have overcome in our lifetime. And that's how I look at it. I'm blessed to have gotten through it and be here today. And I'll continue to take the precautions because that's who I am. I take my vitamins, I exercise, I eat organic, I drink a shitload of wine because, that's good medicine.
So, well, speaking of like diseases and stuff like that, I did see this within the last couple of weeks. So, actually, I guess I saw it a little late, but back in July, a person in Colorado was found infected with the bubonic plague.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of rearing its ugly head again. But because of the kind of precautions and the technology we have available to us today, we can nip it in the bud a whole lot quicker because it's something that's been around before. We're familiar with it. We're familiar with what stops it. So they're checking it pretty quick these days.
And I mean,
thing that we've survived thus far with is, when's the last time you heard anybody talking about AIDS? Brutal killer.
That is true. 'Cause, I mean, there's so many different foundations. There's people constantly working on it and stuff now. Plus, I mean, they have those cocktails and stuff like that. Even though I know that from people's firsthand experiences, they're definitely not fun to do and stuff like that. But I mean, they're still able to maintain and live their lives.
And now the strides that are being made in battling so many different kinds of cancer. It's it's a whole different world now, and we continue to evolve in a positive way. Going to be hit with a bunch of stuff. As long as you're alive on this planet, something's going to happen that you get to survive. Or, if you wake up that day, you got shit to do. If you don't wake up, you got out of it.
Right.
Pretty much that simple. I wake up. I'm grateful that I woke up. And now I'm going to make the best day that I can from it. It's live my best life now because I got here. I'm just thrilled to death. I'm blessed. I don't know how many different ways to say it. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to have all these memories and all this stuff that I did in my life. Did you know that I was Scooch?
Wait, hang on a second. Hang on. Wait. It's like Scooch from the Sky Chief Scooch?
Yeah, I did 2 years of Scooch. I set a world record as Scooch.
What years?
2003, I think it was. Yeah, 2003, 2004.
Weirdly, we've probably crossed past them before.
Yeah.
At some point when I was a young child. Yeah, I'm pretty sure because I used to go to Sky Chasers games all the time. And I used to go up to Scooch all the time.
Probably me. I jumped over 500 pizza boxes on inline skates.
Wait,
My parents are so proud.
Wait, how the hell did they do that in the with the field and everything? I'm confused.
Yeah, so what I did is, Alan the Venture was the crunch man back in those days. When he first came on. Alan and I were good friends.
Okay.
To come to the club, and he's the one that actually convinced me that I should go, because I had done a lot of corporate characters in costume. I just loved putting that costume on. Just gave you this magical
freedom.
To freedom, to be creative and inventive and fun, and nobody got to know who you were, and that made it even more magical. So I had done several corporate characters in Pittsburgh, and I worked for an organization in Pittsburgh. That you're not allowed to talk about all this stuff, but I'll tell you about the Syracuse portion.
Okay.
Once you were in fur, you keep that sacred.
Right.
So it was long. It was what, 20 years ago? Holy crap! I can't believe I just said that out loud. Alan and I would get together, and we would think of crazy shit for each other to do in costume. I remember one time he would come into the arena in a very variety of ways. So in the War Memorial, they had this stairway up above where the stage area is. I said, why don't you take a rope up there and like swing down onto the ice from there? He goes, that's crazy. I'm like, are you afraid? Well, he did it. But the rope was really long. And as he came over the glass, the rope caught the edge of the glass and spun him. And thank God he held on to the rope, because he probably would have gotten injured pretty badly.
Oh, thank God.
He was cursing me after the game, going, you asshole. I go, asshole, you're the one that did it. You did it. And so we're having lunch one day. He goes, and he brought our friend Doug Spoliar, who Doug was the marketing director of the Crunch at the time, ended up being with Papa John's for quite a while after that as marketing director. Papa John's was a big supporter of the Syracuse Crunch. So he said to me, he goes, I got a great idea. Why don't you jump over pizza boxes in costume? That would be a cool thing. We could get a lot of sponsorship for that. We could get Papa John's. We start brainstorming on it. So we got Papa John's to donate 500 pizza boxes and buy the right to be the naming sponsor of that event. This is how I got paid. I was the highest paid mascot in AAA baseball because of stuff like this. Y94 FM was on my team. They paid a rather substantial fee to be on my uniform. I got Honda. They gave me a 4-wheel ATV with a thumb throttle because I wore these big shoes, so I couldn't press pedals.
Right.
Thumb throttle. And then Rollerblade gave me rollerblades, and they sent a stunt coordinator to help train me to do this stunt. And I'm going, well, this is no bullshit. This is kind of a big deal.
Right.
I'm in pretty good physical shape. I'm fighting and competing at the time. I'm a 3-time New York State champion, along with being New York State U.S. national champion. So I'm in really good shape while I'm doing all this. And so what I did is the jump was set up on the third baseline. We did it before the game started. So I had a ramp built. So I had the 4-wheel ATV with a tow rope on it. I had the rollerblades on. It was artificial turf, so I can't land on that turf. I'll break my ankles. Gymnastics school donates a couple of big-ass mats for me to land on.
Okay.
So the jump is structured, so I go around the field hanging onto this tow rope. Around through the outfield, I adjust the speed as we come down the third baseline. I hit that ramp. I go up over 500 boxes, land on the mats. Woo, everyone's excited. Yeah, easy to describe until you start trying to do that.
So how high were the boxes? How long? How long was it?
It was just about 5 feet high.
Okay.
It was 35 feet long.
Oh, so you had to get a really good going speed.
Yeah, we had to hit that ramp pretty quick. Okay, so 35 feet, and then the 15 feet that the mats were, or 10 feet that the mats were. So it was a total about 40, 45 feet from ramp to the end of the mats.
And are you good on skates? Like, are you able to stop on skates?
Nah.
I can't
stop
either.
on those skates because there's nowhere to stop. I'm being towed by an ATV. I'm not
So
stopping.
how did you make your descent after landing then?
Well, so here's what happens. I hit that ramp, I go up. First I have to learn how to do that part. I
Right.
crashed, I had turf burn, I had a concussion, I got banged up, I was
Oh,
bruised and
jeez.
battered. It took me a good 6 weeks to finally be able to do it. And then I had to do it in the costume. This is before I even put the costume on. I'm doing this. I'm wearing hockey pants, a hockey helmet, protecting myself as much as I could. And once I was able to do it, then I put the body of the costume on. Then I put the headpiece on. When you put that headpiece on, you can't really see anything. It's screened, and that's your sight, your vision. So now I have to do it several times in costume so I can get a bead on when I go up. What's my marker to know when I'm going to hit so I can protect myself when I hit those mats? So I came around, when I see the top of the stadium, I know I'm about to hit the mats, so I tuck and get ready.
Right.
So as we come around, my son is my driver. He's driving the ATV, towing me. I'm doing crazy shit, waving and switching hands, and woo woo. We come through the outfield. I adjust the speed. If I think we're going a little slow, I jack them up a little bit. Too fast, I turn them down. When we make that turn, I got to hit it at the right speed so I can hit that ramp dead on. Well, the day we did the jump, well, first of all, I'm laying on the turf one day after crashing again. And John Simone comes up to me and he looks down at me, laying on the turf. He goes, "Can you do this?" I said, "John, Scooch can do anything." He says, "Well, tell Scooch to get off the field under his own power. That's all I'm asking." So I get back up, and the day of the event, your adrenaline's always cooking. I had a crash helmet made for Scooch. It was kind of cool. I had gloves, I had elbow pads on and stuff. It was kind of neat the way I set it up. It was just before the game, and all the players were just cracking up. All the players thought I was a nut job to begin with, all the crap I did. And so we coming through home plate. We come around the outfield. As we're coming through center field, I juice them up a little bit. I tell them, pick up the speed. Felt like, let's get a little more speed coming into the turn. Well, we were going too fast. When we came around to make the turn onto the third baseline, I almost went into the gravel. That's how fast we were going. I'm going, oh shit, because that ramp's coming up quick. I have to make a decision on how to proceed. I figured I was going to drop the rope a little early so I would slow down a little bit before I hit the ramp. Well, I didn't want to take the chance of missing, so I just held on as long as I should have held on. I hit that ramp so clean. It was the cleanest jump I had done. I have a great picture. I wish I could send it to you because I'd have to look for it in my picture files.
Right.
I'm airborne, my hands up, my feet up as high as my hand, Scooch's big head right there, Scooch on the scoreboard, and all the players standing in the outfield watching this. So now I'm airborne, and I was going too fast when I hit this ramp. And now I'm waiting to see the top of the stadium to know I'm going to land. I'm not seeing the top of the stadium. And now I'm going, oh shit, I'm going too far. So luckily, as I came down, my butt hit just the very edge of the mats. So I did hit the mats when I landed. I lay there for a second. My hands go up. He's fine. Scooch did it. I get up. I do a big split, and then I grab the ATV and I wave to the people. I circle around and I go out while my team gets all that crap off the field because the game's going to start. So all this happened in minutes.
Jeez.
I get back into the dugout. The players are laughing their asses off. They're going, "Scooch, you are a madman. That was so awesome."
So with the Scooch suits, I can only imagine how hot does it get in that thing?
So here's the way it works. If it's 80 degrees outside, add 20 degrees inside the costume. So it's 100 inside the costume.
Jesus
now,
Christ.
80 degrees outside on field is an additional 15 degrees. So 95 on field plus that 20 in the costume, it's about 120, 130 in the costume. So what you have to learn how to do in the baseball arena, what you have to learn how to do your tricks, to make your point, and get off the field so you can get that headpiece off and breathe. You had to learn your stadium. You had to know your stadium. You had to know what you could do, how much of what you wanted to do you could do without dying. quite frankly. That's what would happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one thing I would. You want to know what? I want to know a statistic. How many mascots
Throw up in the
suffer heat
costume.
exhaustion?
Yeah, a lot of rookies throw up in that headpiece because they have no idea what they're doing. These kids get paid $25 a game to walk and wave, and they puke.
So, okay, that's actually a better statistic than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So it says the only documented research survey that was found is 28 out of 48 mascots users have reported severe heat-related injuries from heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
So pretty much half, or more than half.
But they're talking to a lot of professionals, guys that know what they're doing in that costume.
Right, and they're still dealing with this stuff. I mean, because apparently back in 2019, a mascot performer in Japan collapsed and died from heat stroke while rehearsing a dance. Jeez.
Again,
I mean,
you got to be smart when you're in that thing. You got to be smart. These guys say, "Yeah, I put a fan in my headpiece." Yeah, what's that? Another 10 pounds that you're lugging around, and it doesn't cool you because the fan gets hot spinning. So it doesn't cool you. You just have to be smart. You have to learn your stadium, learn how to do the tricks in a timely enough fashion that you can get off the field and get that headpiece off. That's how I did my gig. I had some really good fun, man. My goal was to get on TV every game. I wanted to do something to get on TV every home game, which I pretty much accomplished it. I used to have a lot of fun with the ushers. We would set up bits before the game.
Now they don't even have Scooch. They have some, I forgot the fuck it's called.
Some stupid Met thing,
yeah.
Big Met head. Yeah. I crowd surfed. I crowd surfed at a game. That was awesome.
Even though they're the Mets now, I will always call them the Sky Chiefs. Like that's who they are. Plus, all my memorabilia is Sky Chiefs stuff. So it's just weird having them switch their branding and stuff like that. Granted, I'm gonna be bringing my kids to a game eventually here soon because they're getting more interested in watching like sports and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try and get my daughter and my son into it, but we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they like it. But my son is a very attention seeking. Like he needs something in front of him to keep his attention.
Baseball's not it.
Yeah, baseball is usually not it. I have been able to, because I mean, along with everybody else in the past 7-8 years, diving into Korean animation and Korean dramas and stuff like that. I've opened them up to animes and stuff like that, which they watch a lot of them with me and stuff like that, and they find them funny. And you have grandkids, right?
My son's hooking up with a girl. Neither one of them had. Oh, I take that back. My older son just announced that he's engaged and they will be getting married in July. So I have a shot.
Congratulations!
I have a shot. I want to give a shout out to him.
How old is he?
He's 40.
Okay. And is this the first person that he's ever asked to engage?
He's had girlfriends before. They both have. And I was teasing with that. But they just, my sons, I'm really grateful for the people that they have become and are. They are no bullshit people. Neither one of them do drama. They don't do drama at all. Jason had a girlfriend he brought to the house once. One of the few girlfriends we've ever met over all 40 years of his life. And he had a female friend. This is what ended their relationship. He had a female friend who asked him to escort her to a friend's wedding in Rochester. So we told the girlfriend, my friend would like me to go with her to our other friend's wedding together. She goes, well, if you go to that wedding with her, we're done. And he goes, okay, see ya. And she goes,
yeah, what's the big deal? I mean,
yeah, really.
Honestly, the majority of people would just go to the wedding for the free food and stuff like that, and the free drinks.
Yeah. So, if it was a big deal to her, then she's not the person that he's going to be with. So
right.
He found the right person. I'm going to give him a shout out. He was the youngest stand-up comic in the world when he was 4 years old. We auditioned for David Letterman. He performed at my club, Wise Guys, regularly. He performed at the Comic Strip in New York City. And he did radio interviews regularly around the country. He's Jason Schirripa. He is a music director in the Liverpool School District.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, he's been around a long time. He's pretty proud of him, and he plays out with a band called Brass Inc. So you have a chance to see Brass Inc. That's my boy behind the cans.
I'll pull them up too.
Okay. Yeah, he'll call me all the time. He goes, Dad, we need some new material. What do you think? Because they do like a lot of 80s stuff, some
Oh
dancey
yeah.
stuff.
So they have their own website. Look at
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is Brass Inc. And then
Yeah.
is your son in the picture right here?
Let's see here. Yeah, wearing the black T-shirt on the left of the picture I'm looking at.
This one right here?
Yeah, that's him. That's Jason.
Okay, awesome. And so they do a mix of like rock, classic rock, southern rock, rhythm blues. So they do pretty much a bunch of different stuff.
They're a fun band. They're a fun band. We've gone out to see them. Patty and I have flown in when they do the Turquoise Tiger at the Turning Stone, and we've come to see them play out a couple of times. They get around pretty good. They're a good band. They're a really good band. Excited for them.
Well, everybody definitely check them out.
He plays with the Central Jazz Ensemble, I think it is. He was in Italy with them last year. They did a jazz festival in Italy. And then my other son, I'll bang him a little bit, Marco Schirripa. He is the director of percussion at Central Michigan University.
Oh, wow.
And his first album was released last September, titled Digital Dances. It's based on, he's a big gamer, so it's based on, it's all original pieces. It's all his original music. Yeah, his primary instrument is marimba, so it's all classical marimba that resembles, you'll hear a lot of what sounds like gaming music in his writing style. It's really cool. You can find that online. I think some of his tunes are available. You might be able to find them on Amazon at some point.
Okay. And for everybody, for the Brass Inc., their next show, it looks like, will be August 21st at Jammers from 6 to 9:30.
They do Jammers quite a bit in season.
Okay. And they're also going to be at the fair too. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're over at the West End.
Mm-hmm. The fair, I don't think I'm going to this year. We ended up bringing my son because his birthday was last week, and last week the weather wasn't that great for what we wanted to do, and when we were going to do it this coming week, it said it was going to rain even more, so we were like, all right, let's just go on Friday. So we went on Friday to Seabreeze and spent way more than I thought I was going to there, because the food is just astronomically priced. Like a small kitty ice cream like this small was like $7. It was just ridiculous. And on top of that, I got this massive sunburn. My shoulders have been killing me all the past couple days and everything. And I don't feel like going and standing in the sun in the fair, being around a bunch of people that just. Also, the smells, like, you get some weird smells in that fair, just puke here and there. It's not worth it. I might go for some of the free concerts, but that'll be it.
Like, I don't know if you remember that. There's a weird cat right there, man. He's funny.
I mean, did you? I didn't check out his most recent like Netflix show, but the one about like the Illuminati or whatever. But I wanted to, where he plays like a bunch of different characters. Because you haven't seen one of those movies where somebody plays multiple characters, except for Tyler Perry's, obviously. But
just him. He's done it many times in all of his movies. It's just, I have. My wife and I will turn the TV on occasionally at night, and we'll go to the Fire Stick and look for an obscure show that is about espionage that's intriguing, not your formula like here's a good guy, here's a bad guy. Eventually, they're going to catch you. We like shows that twist and turn, and we find they have like 1, 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons. We're going, why was this show canceled? This show was brilliant. Well, that's why it was canceled, because you had to think. People don't want to think. They want to look at stupid shit. Oh, here's the good guy. Here's the bad guy. Oh, how soon before they catch each other? Can I have another ice cream, Jimmy? So that's really the only time we turn the TV on. I've seen one comedy show. My last show was at the Palace Theater 2 years ago. We sold out with Jim DeLocas from Australia and Sheila Kay from New York.
Okay.
And every show that I've done since I left the club business, I have donated 100% of the proceeds to charity.
Oh wow.
I did that throughout my career, actually. Many show nights, I made a sizable donation, and I've always been very charity minded and continue to be, my wife and I. So that was the last show I ever did. My wife said, at some point you got to stop doing this. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. Okay, I'm going to be done now, because it really is a lot of work. And
Yeah.
it reminds me when I start producing a show and I get within 2 weeks of the show, I start to remember why I retired. Because I get to be done doing this now. I don't have to. I do it
Right.
because I want to, but now I'm done. What I do now is I teach martial arts a couple days a week because I get to train also. And I get a lot of gratification from putting some kids on the right path. That's kind of cool for me. So aside from that, the only comic that I have seen since then is my really good friend, Joey Cola, who I am going to put you in touch with because he is just a blast to talk to. He is just so full of fire and energy. He is actually Rachel Ray's floor director and Drew Barrymore floor director.
So for floor director, what exactly do they do?
So here's what the floor director does. When you go to be in the audience for one of these shows, Rachel Ray or Drew Barrymore show, her talk show, they bring you into a holding room. Okay, this is how many people we have that can fit into the show. So there's 200 and something people that fit. Okay, 200 people come in, and they put them in a staging room. They all sign waivers at that point, and this is all Joey's responsibility to make sure everyone starts to have a good time at that point. And he just pumps up the room, he does some bits. He's good with interacting with the people. So from there, they go into the main studio. Once they come into the main studio, he's in the main studio, making them laugh, charging them up. He'll do about 20 minutes of material with them while instructing them on when you see this light come on, you applaud. When you see this light come on, you don't do this, you don't do that. It just the lay of the land. He's the master of ceremonies for the show.
Okay.
And then in and out of segments, he's the guy that's he's out on the floor. Okay, applause. And while they're getting ready for the next set, he does some stuff. He keeps the audience engaged, is what his job is. It's a tough job, but he's known as one of the best ever to do that. He's been doing Rachel about 15 years now. And
wow. So he started with her when she first started then, right?
Yeah, well, actually, our good friend R.C. Smith was with Rachel for about 5 years. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. R.C. was with her for 15. Joey's been with her for 5.
Oh, okay.
R.C. retired from that segment. He lives down here in Florida now, actually.
Oh, nice.
We both went to see Joey 2 weeks ago when he was down here doing a show. So R.C. passed the baton to Joey, recommended him for the job, and Joey got the gig. And then he got the gig with Drew Barrymore because she's in the same studio. And she loved him. They got to know each other. And you can't not love Joey Cola. And then he also does a show where he is the master of ceremonies and moderator for Conversations with the Sopranos. It's on tour. It's a show where guys from the Sopranos.
I have seen some of that. And I mean, the Soprano guys are hilarious themselves and stuff like that. And the behind the scenes stories that they have from the Sopranos and stuff like that.
They do. And here's a little known fact. Steve Schirripa from The Sopranos is my cousin.
So that was one thing I was going to ask as one of the last things, because I saw that he had the same last name, and I was like, that's not a very common name.
No,
so
it's not in this country.
You said, so he's your cousin?
Yeah. So the way we got to know this is he was working at the Improv in Las Vegas when they first opened. And comics, would come, there's a dude with the same last name as you working at the Improv in Vegas. You know him? I go, nah, I don't know him. I never talked. So one night I got a phone call from the comic that was working. I can't remember who it was exactly. He says, hey, I'm here with Steve Schirripa. He said, and you guys have the same last name. You got to know each other. So he puts him on the phone. He goes, hey, yeah, I got a call a few months ago from a guy named Joe. I go, yeah, that's my dad. He's trying to find everyone he came over with. I go, who's your dad? He says, my dad is Dominic. I said, my dad's talked about your dad many times from Italy when they were kids.
Oh,
They came
wow.
over as teenagers. So, there was definitely a connection. And it's kind of cool. Yeah. Hey, we're both from
I mean,
Philly.
that is really, I mean, I was going to say, you guys look a lot alike.
Yeah. He looks more like my father than,
Really?
yeah, he really has that family resemblance. When I look at him, I go, yeah, you can see the family resemblance immediately. He really resembles my dad.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
And
really
I
cool.
mean, I bet you guys, even when you were younger too, you guys looked even more alike.
Oh yeah.
But so we're getting towards the end. This is usually where I want to cap it off. So we're gonna cut it off, guys. I know it's been fun today, especially with Bruno and all of his stories and everything. And I'm gonna make sure to put the brass ink, and if you would like to send your other son's information, I can also put that in the description and stuff like that for people to check out. And my next podcast, we're having a very special guest as well. It's a guy you might know from Team Backpack back in the day. His name is E Money. He's an independent rapper artist from California, and he'll be joining us that day. And it should be fun. He might even freestyle. I'm at least going to try and get him to. We're going to see what happens.
That guy owes me money.
But thank you guys for another great episode of Rawheads, or not Rawheads, Raw and Roasted. Jeez,
Raw and Roasted.
it's been a long day, people.
Hey, thanks for having me
Anyway,
on.
guys, again, let's give it up for Bruno one more time. And Bruno, it looks like we might get a couple more guests from Bruno later on, so we might get some more comedians up in here that are have crazy amount of stories and just the most amount of perspective and experience that we can all learn from and stuff like that. So I look forward to that. But thank you again, Bruno, for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Jesse, it's been a lot of fun for me. Thanks.
No problem. And have a good night, guys. Stay safe. Don't smack your sister, okay? All right.